Central Bank of Nigeria to raise 700 billion naira via Treasury bills auction on May 7th. Net zero sheepen federal government advocates fairness equity for developing countries. Oil prices fall in choppy trade as Trump plans to free ships stranded due to Middle East conflict. Asian stocks advance on tech as dollar edges lower. The program is Business Express, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. I am Musa Abubakar, your guide. Now, let's begin by telling you the Central Bank of Nigeria, CBN, has announced plans to raise 700 billion naira through a Nigerian Treasury bills auction scheduled for May 7th, 2026, in line with the federal government's second quarter borrowing program. Details of the planned issuance were contained in an official tender notice issued by the Apex Bank on behalf of the Debt Management Office, DMO. The auction marks the first national Treasury bills sale for the months of May and forms part of broader efforts to manage liquidity and meet short-term funding obligations. According to the notice, the 700 billion naira offering will be split across 3 maturities under the Dutch auction system. A total of 100 billion naira will be issued in 91-day bills, 50 billion naira in 182-day bills, and a larger portion of 550 billion naira in 364-day bills. Primary dealers have been directed to submit bids electronically via the scriptless securities settlement system between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. on May 6th. The minimum subscription has been pegged at 50 million naira. Successful bidders will receive allotment letters on May 7th, with payment expected by 11 a.m. on the settlement date. However, the CBN noted that it reserves the right to adjust the total amount of offer depending on prevailing market conditions. Naira strengthens across markets, gains 11 naira 8 kobo per dollar at official window. How much is the naira exchanging for the currencies? Let's have a look. The National Information Technology Development Agency, NIDA, has stepped up efforts to boost Nigeria's innovation space through a strategic partnership with Galaxy Bone Limited to provide subsidized sovereign cloud services for startups. The collaboration will support participants in the iHajj program with access to secure, locally hosted cloud infrastructure, a move seen as critical to scaling indigenous technology solutions and strengthening data sovereignty. Under the arrangement, startups will be on board onto the Galaxy Cloud platform, enabling enabling them to host data within Nigeria while benefiting from enterprise-grade infrastructure backed by advanced data centers and cybersecurity systems. Director General of NIDA, Kashifu Inua Abdullahi, said the initiative is designed to remove key barriers confronting startups. Also speaking, the Managing Director of Galaxy Bone, Ibrahim Ade Yanju, described the move as a major boost for innovation-driven enterprises. The program will operate a tiered milestone-based system where cloud credits are released across different growth phases, including build, validation, and scale. The credits will run for a specified period before beneficiaries transition to regular billing. Nigeria has urged the global maritime community to prioritize fairness, equity, and adequate support for developing economies in the push toward net zero emissions in international shipping. Speaking at the 84th session of the Maritime Environment Protection Committee of the International Maritime Organization in London, the Minister of Marine and Blue Economy, Adegboyega Oyetola, reaffirmed the country's support for decarbonization, stating that such support depends on frameworks that reflect the economic realities of developing nations. Oyetola, in a statement by his special advisor, Bolaji Akinnola, emphasized that achieving net zero emissions by 2050 must align with sustainable development goals. The minister, on the sidelines of the MEPC 84, also held strategic meetings with the Secretary General of the IMO, Arsenio de Mingos, and the President of Saudi Arabia's Transport General Authority, Fawaz Al-Sihali, where he reaffirmed Nigeria's commitment to deeper collaboration, maritime security, capacity building, blue economy development, and advancing a fair and inclusive energy transition. Domingos commended Nigeria's leadership in enhancing maritime security in the Gulf of Guinea, highlighting significant progress in reducing piracy and improving regional coordination, as well as the country's expanding role within the IMO Council, ongoing reforms in port modernization and digitalization, and efforts to strengthen human capital in line with global maritime standards. The net zero tariff position in Nigeria for the China 100 as of May 1st, 2026, Nigeria has officially moved from a standard tariff bracket to enjoying 100% zero tariff treatment on all tariff lines. This transition is being viewed as a game changer for non-oil exports, specifically agricultural and semi-processed goods that previously faced duties of up to 30%. Now, to consolidate on this conversation, which began on May 1st, we have Collins Nyosu, an international trade facilitator, to take us through the what and to the how. Mr. Nwosu, welcome to Business Express.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, beautiful. Well, the other day we started this conversation. I believe this is more or less like part 2 of the conversation. But let's begin by, well, given Nigeria's current export structure, how prepared are we to benefit from this net zero initiative?
I think the way to look at it would not be to ask how prepared are we. The way to probably look at it would be to say what advantages are there that we can take, the low-hanging fruit that we can take advantage of and build upon. I'll give an example. I mean, export, one of the major things you need to look at, especially if you're going to export to China, is standards. So what standards do they require to have your inputs come into their country? What are the phytosanitary, requirements? So if you're looking at those, for instance, we already have some wins in the country. There has been, NINAS is one of the organizations that was certified last year to issue international certifications to those who are exporting. So they certify, laboratories, for instance, within the country. So it means that whatever you take to some of those laboratories that are already certified in Nigeria by NINAS will not need to be recertified by a third party, which was a huge cost, which was one of the loopholes through which people were having a lot of export rejection. So it's already a low-hanging fruit that we can take advantage of. So question is, what else do we have that we can begin to use while we look at the total infrastructure revamp that will be required to fully operationalize or industrialize and make ourselves competitive in the landscape? Because there are already countries, 33 countries, LDCs were already doing this before it was opened up to 53, to 20 more countries to make it 53 on the continent.
Okay, what areas do you think we can actually explore in terms of sectors? We talked about agricultural goods, but I know China is known for its good import substitution policy. What areas do you think we can actually take advantage of when it comes to, is it agricultural goods or,
Well, in the agricultural value chain, there are so many things that could be done. Right now, we are looking, of course, naturally we'll be looking at commodities. I mean, the export potential for Nigeria is in deficit by about $3 billion US, right? So, and most of that export that we're talking about in terms of potential is still commodities. So yes, there is room for cashew, there's room for cocoa, there's room for sesame, there's room for the usual suspects. Now, what there's also room for is moving from cashew to, toasted cashew, so snacks. There's room for us to begin to make, standardize our local snacks, which we have always produced with these products, and send them out there. Because if you look at the Chinese market, the Asian market generally, they are always in the market for good stuff, well made, to a certain standard that suits their culture. So we already have these items that suit their culture, and I think what it requires is for us to industrialize. And there are a lot of small factories that are making these products. Question is, how can we help them to scale? How can we help them to meet those standards, and how can we push them into the market safely? So those advantages are there. There are also programs that beyond the commodity itself, the infrastructure that could be utilized. I know a few years ago the Nigerian Export Promotion Council had set up an export house in China and in a few parts of the world as well. So this is the time for that export house to be leveraged massively. Now, beyond that, as I said, it's not just about the agricultural produce itself. It gives room for services. It means that those who are in the private sector have the opportunity to set up their own export systems and to set up, technology systems that enable these trades to happen. So it's a huge opportunity for manufacturing services, tech, that has just opened up for us to use. And as a tech hub, if I may say so, of Africa, this has just fallen right in our lap, and we can take advantage of it.
Okay, for decades we have talked about trade imbalances. As of May 1st, the gate became open officially, wide open in fact. The question is, no longer can we sell to China, but are we ready to compete? Then I would like to take your, pick your thoughts on what you make of our trade balance now. How will this impact on our trade balance between Nigeria and China? Again,
if you've ever listened to me, you know that I want to move from the realm of potential to actualizing something. I would say if you're taking a step, it's better than you're looking and saying, I could actually take 100 steps. So the person who takes a step is better positioned than the person who has the potential to take 1,000 steps, right? So in terms of the trade imbalances, that could be overturned. Look, there is no gainsaying that over the years China has become a manufacturing powerhouse. You can't compete with that at this level. There's no There's no need to start saying, oh, you know, we must process everything before you sell it. That, again, is not going to happen today or overnight. The truth is, we will still be selling commodities for a while. The question is, what do you do with the funds that you receive from the commodities? How do we make it easier to sell the commodities, repatriate the funds, and help those who are in the business to develop enough to build capacity to do more, right? So do we make it easy for them to export? I mean, can we make the export pathway smoother? Can we remove the bottlenecks that we have at the ports so that it makes it easy for them to actually export? Can we look at the clusters that have already been created painstakingly over the years and see what interventions can be done within those clusters to help them to produce? For instance, we banned the sale of shea nuts. Beautiful, no problem. But what move have we made since then to support that industry to move into production? Because most of the people who are in the business are mainly women in the primary place who pick the nuts. Then the businessmen come pick it and then sell. Yeah. So what has happened between that time and now to help produce or create some form of mini manufacturing centers or common facility centers that could be supported? So I think that while we are selling what we're selling under the current conditions, selling raw cocoa, selling raw sesame, we have to start intentionally putting systems in place to add value to those items. And we have to start removing the bottlenecks. So deeper engagements need to start happening with industry players, to ensure that we achieve this. One other way to look at it is that for institutions like the Export Promotion Council or FMITI, there are strategic commodities that they have looked at and said, hey, you know what, over the next couple of years, we're going to work in this area. So can we now amplify their work? Can we now say, okay, these are the places you've chosen. Those in the private sector, we're interested in this. What are you bringing to the table? Can you bring us the facilities and we'll work with you and we'll bring the clusters that we have? Can you sponsor or can you work on certification and we will help in the collation and the aggregation? Can you help? So that synergy needs to happen now more than others. I'm not saying it's not happening, but it needs to happen now more. There needs to be an urgency in taking those steps. And as I said, even if it's one step we take, it's better than saying, we have the potential to take 1,000 steps.
Well, what makes you think that this won't be just like the AGOA policy we've seen? What makes this one particularly different from AGOA?
I will say this: there are two sides to this. Yeah. When you say potential, we have the potential to fail, just as we have the potential to succeed. So it could go either way. But I'm rooting for this to work because I believe the partners that we have on the other side, the Chinese, are really, really interested in making it work for them. Remember, every country is looking at what is in it for them as well, right? So I want my citizens to benefit as much as I want the others to benefit. It should be win-win. So they looking inwards would definitely drive partnerships. They will drive more production. They will drive what they can get with the zero tariffs. The question is, would we have educated ourselves and positioned ourselves enough to see that that benefit that is being derived is warehoused to a large extent within the country? So if we set up a factory, joint partnership with a Chinese company, and they own 90%, that 10%, what does it do for me? Right? But can we start working on the negotiations and not negotiate from the positions of weakness? Those are the kinds of things that we have to start doing. So it's looking at the entire value chain, looking at the entire possibilities and say, hey, you know what? We made some errors, technical errors in the past. There's so much that we can learn from AGOA. Let's take those learnings into this new tariff regime with China and begin to unburden ourselves or remove the blockades and give more of our private sector people the access that they require, the information that they require, the support that they require to ensure that this works. It has to be hand in glove between public and private sector.
Now, do you see this somehow reducing over dependence on oil exports in Nigeria?
Yes, it has the potential to do that. Really, it does. Again, if you look at the NEPC and the NNPC set up almost at about the same time with similar mandates. The NNPC quickly worked with crude, and they have developed a very huge capacity to handle, crude oil or hydrocarbons and related products from that. Nothing says that our NEPC cannot look at one or two strategic commodities and start with those and build them up. We used to be known for groundnut pyramids. So nothing says that we cannot have the sesame pyramids or the yam pyramids and drive that as the entry point into other things, or the hibiscus pyramids, and use that as the entry point. What we need is an entry point. What we have now with China is an entry point. The question is, how do we use it?
Okay, thank you very much, Ambassador Collins. It's always a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, now investors' returns on Nigerian stock market surged to 56.6 trillion naira in 4 months. Olayinka Ojo has details on how stocks fared in Nigeria last week.
The NGX All Share Index and market capitalization appreciated by 7.33% to close the week at 242,277.81 basis points and 155.994 trillion naira. The market opened for 4 trading days last week as the federal government declared Friday, 1st May 2026 as public holiday to commemorate 2026 Workers' Day. Meanwhile, a total turnover of 4.842 billion shares worth 287.756 billion naira in 332,454 deals were traded by investors on the floor of the exchange. The financial services industry led the activity chart with 3.755 billion shares valued at 124.398 billion naira in 146,938 deals, contributing 77.56% and 43.23% to the total equity turnover in volume and value. The consumer goods industry followed with 177.009 million shares worth 30.853 billion naira in 36,609 deals. The third place, the services industry, had a turnover of 176.809 million shares worth 4.387 billion naira in 15,310 deals. Trading in the top 3 equities, Access Holdings, United Bank for Africa, and Wema Bank PLC accounted for 2.026 billion shares worth 60.036 billion naira in 39,925 deals. While the ETPs had a total of 5.665 million units valued at 640.483 million naira traded in 7,382 deals. The bonds market had a total of 153,656 units valued at 156.875 million naira in 43 deals. On summary of price changes, 52 equities appreciated in price during the week, 53 equities depreciated, while 41 equities remained unchanged. Olayinka Ojo for Business.
Now let's join Maria Dozakari for Global Stocks Update. Maria, is over to you.
Thank you, Musa. Starting off with European markets, which traded lower as investors continue to monitor developments in the Middle East and a potential renewal of transatlantic trade tensions. Figures out of the region shows that the DAX of Germany was down 0.07%, while FTSE of the UK was unchanged, and we have the CAC of France down 0.55%. In Asia, South Korea stocks hit fresh records, building on historic monthly rally in April. Other indices remain unchanged, while we have the Hang Seng Index of Hong Kong climbing 1.24% at 26,095. To U.S., we have stock futures trading close to the flat line as investors monitor the latest developments. The Dow is in red at 0.19%. We have S&P 500 reflecting at 0.27%, and we have the Nasdaq Composite also down 0.12%. Africa markets mixed. We have South Africa JSE to 40 up down 0.02%. We have Kenya down 0.77%. Reflecting the figure is Namibia down 0.09%. On the other side, we have Tunisia in green at 0.49%. In Ghana also up 0.14%. And that's global market for Monday. I am Maria Aduzaka. It's back to you, Musa.
Oh, thank you, Maria. Well, this is where we end today's edition of Business Express. We value your feedback, so keep the comments, observations, and suggestions coming. I've been informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on ANT's channel. Business Express returns on Tuesday by 9:30 a.m. I'm Musa Abubakar. Thanks for your company.